The dropship's engines whined as we breached the planet's atmosphere. I gripped the harness, eyes fixed on the descent monitor. Our mission: investigate a long-lost human colony. Simple enough. I'd done a dozen like it before. "Captain Roth, we're approaching the LZ," Omar called from the cockpit. I nodded, unbuckling. "Gear up, people!" Dr. Cole fumbled with his envirosuit, hands shaking slightly. First time planetside for the xenobiologist. Sergeant Moore, on the other hand, demonstrated exceptional skill, checking his weapon for the third time since our arrival in orbit. The dropship touched down. Dust swirled outside the viewports, obscuring our first glimpse of this planet. I keyed the comms. "Control, this is Roth. We've landed, commencing initial recon." Static crackled. Omar frowned at his console. "Captain, we're getting some interference. Signal's weak." "Boost it," I ordered, securing my helmet. "I want a clear line to the ship at all times." The ramp lowered, revealing the landscape. Wind-battered rocks reached out to the horizon, occasionally giving way to the prominent outlines of what I assumed were the colony structures. "Move out," I said, taking point. "Cole, atmospheric readings. Breathable, sir. Slightly higher oxygen content than Earth standard. No detectable pathogens." We advanced cautiously, more covering our six. The colony appeared in the distance, a cluster of prefab units and larger buildings that were likely constructed after the initial landing. But something was wrong. The buildings showed signs of extreme age and neglect, far beyond what our briefing had indicated. "How long has it been since last contact?" 37 years, 4 months, Captain," Cole supplied helpfully. "But this level of degradation suggests a hell of a lot longer," Moore finished. As we neared the outskirts, I held up a fist, signaling a halt. There, carved into the metal skin of a storage unit, were crude markings. Symbols I didn't recognize, primal and disturbing. "Cole, you seeing this?" I asked, gesturing to the markings. The xenobiologist approached, the scanner making a low sound. "Fascinating. These appear to be..." A grating, near-animalistic sound shattered the quiet. We spun around, arms raised to face a shadowy form lurching out from the alley. The man looked frail, his skin drawn tightly over his bony body. His eyes flitted between us in agitation, and his lips moved in a constant stream of unintelligible muttering. "I'm Captain Asher Roth," I said slowly, lowering my weapon slightly. "We're here to help. Do you understand me?" The man's mutterings became louder and increasingly disturbed. He gesticulated wildly, pointing back the way he'd come. I couldn't make sense of his words. They seemed to be a bastardized mix of standard and something else. "Cole, any luck translating?" The xenobiologist shook his head. "I'm unfamiliar with this kind of speech, Captain. The linguistic drift is extreme." I took a step forward, hands raised placatingly. "We need to speak with your leaders. Can you take us to them?" The man fell silent, head cocked as if listening to something we couldn't hear. Then, abruptly, he turned and began walking back into the maze of buildings. "Sir?" Moore questioned, finger resting near his trigger. I took a second. Years of training screamed that this was a bad idea. But we had a job to do. "Follow him. Stay alert." As we continued through the colony, more figures appeared, silently observing from doorways and alleyways. "Captain," Omar said, "I'm losing the signal to the ship. Whatever is causing the interference, it's getting stronger." I opened my mouth to reply, but the words died in my throat. We had emerged into what must have once been the colony's central plaza. Now it was filled with silent, staring colonists. And at the center, dominating everything, stood a structure that had no right to exist on this backwater planet. It was a temple, cobbled together from scavenged materials and adorned with those same primal symbols we'd seen earlier. But it wasn't the temple itself that disturbed me. It was the sight of what was inside, a strange, mesmerizing light that seemed to reach into me. "My God," Cole whispered. "What have they found?" The colonists parted, revealing an old man approaching us. His face and body were covered in scars, which resembled the symbols around us. When he spoke, his voice was surprisingly clear. "Welcome, brothers," he said, arms spread wide. "You have come to witness our ascension." "I'm Captain Asher Roth," I repeated, addressing the elder. "We're here to investigate the loss of contact with your colony. What's happened here?" The elder's scarred face twisted into what might have been a smile. "Loss? No, Captain. We have not lost anything. We have gained everything." Cole approached with a look of intense scientific curiosity. "Sir, your linguistic structures are remarkably preserved compared to the other colonists we've encountered." The elder fixed Cole with a penetrating stare. "The gift has shown us truths beyond your understanding." "The gift?" I prompted. The elder gestured towards the temple. "Come. Witness for yourselves." As we approached the structure, I felt a pull, an urge to move faster. I resisted and kept my pace steady. Moore flanked me, his posture tense. "I don't like this, sir," he muttered. "We should fall back, call for extraction." I shook my head. "Negative. We need answers." The interior of the temple was a mix of scavenged tech and primitive construction. Crudely welded metal sheets formed walls adorned with those same symbols. But it was the object at the center that demanded attention. A metal object, roughly spherical, but covered in jutting angles and recessed panels, was suspended between 4 pylons. Its surface constantly reconfigured, panels sliding and locking into new positions every few seconds. From the seams in its structure, a brilliant blue-white light spread, filling the area with a harsh, uneven glow. "Incredible," Cole breathed, fumbling for his scanner. I shifted my attention from the object and made myself focus. "What is it? Where did it come from?" The elder spread his arms wide. "It is the gift. It came to us from the stars, offering enlightenment, power, unity." As he spoke, I noticed changes in my team. Cole's eyes were feverish. Omar swayed slightly as if in a trance. Even Moore's stoic demeanor had cracked, revealing a hint of wonder. "This gift, what exactly has it done to your people?" The elder's smile widened, revealing teeth filed to points. "It has freed us from the shackles of our old existence. We are evolving into a new form." A group of colonists entered the temple. Their bodies were a horrifying blend of organic tissue and machinery, with rough cybernetic implants sticking out from their arms and torsos. They moved with a bizarre, synchronized rhythm, as if guided by a single mind. Moore's hand went to his weapon. "Sir, stand down," I ordered. "We're still on a diplomatic mission." The elder approached, extending a hand. "Join us, Captain. Let the gift show you the truth." I took an involuntary step back. "I think we'll need some time to process this. If you don't mind, we'd like to set up camp and report back to our ship." Something dark flashed behind the elder's eyes, but his smile never wavered. "Of course. Rest. Contemplate. The gift will be waiting." As we exited the temple, I felt the pull lessen, but not disappear entirely. The colonists watched us silently as we made our way to the outskirts of the settlement. "Omar," I said once we were out of earshot. "Status on communications?" He shook his head, looking dazed. "Still nothing, Captain. The interference is too strong." "All right, we set up camp here. Standard watches. No one goes anywhere alone." As the others busied themselves with the camp, I pulled Cole aside. "Doctor, I need everything you can tell me about that thing in there." Cole's eyes were unfocused, his words coming in a rush. "The energy signatures, the spatial distortions. It shouldn't be possible. We need to study it further. Think of what we could learn." I gripped his shoulder. "Focus, Cole. Is it dangerous?" He blinked, some clarity returning to his expression. I'm not sure. The effects on the colonists are clearly profound, but without more information." "All right," I said, releasing him. "Get some rest. We'll figure this out in the morning." As night fell, silence settled over the camp. Sleep failed to bring comfort. My dreams were filled with shifting geometries and whispered promises. I jolted awake, covered in sweat. The first hints of dawn were creeping over the horizon. I did a quick head count, feeling my stomach drop as I realized we were one short. Cole was gone. "More, Omar!" I barked, scrambling to my feet. "Up! Now!" Moore was on his feet in an instant, weapon at the ready. Omar took longer, rubbing his eyes blearily. "Cole's gone," I said, scanning the perimeter. "How long was I out?" Moore checked his chronometer. 4 hours, sir. I took second watch. Everything was quiet. "Omar, try the comms again. We need to reach the ship." As Omar fiddled with his equipment, I approached the edge of our camp. The colony lay silent before us, but I could see movement between buildings. They were watching us. "Still nothing, Captain," Omar reported. "The interference is even stronger now." I made a decision. "Gear up. We're going to find Cole and get some answers." We moved through the colony's streets. Everywhere, those symbols were carved into walls and doors. As we neared the central plaza, I noticed dark stains marred the ground at regular intervals, leading towards the temple. "Blood," Moore muttered, kneeling to examine one of the marks. "Fresh." The message was unmistakable. I quickened our pace. The temple stood ahead, its mismatched architecture seeming more menacing in the soft morning glow. As we approached, I could hear a muted background noise from within, blended with what sounded like chanting. I held up a fist, signaling a halt. "Moore, you're with me. Omar, stay here and keep trying to reach the ship. If you don't hear from us in 30 minutes, make for the landing zone and call for extraction." Moore and I entered the temple. The central hall was packed with colonists, their bodies swaying in unison. At the center, that metallic sphere continued its ceaseless reconfiguration, bathing everything in its light. And there, at the base of the object, was Cole. He stood with his arms outstretched, fresh cuts visible on his forearms. The elder stood beside him, a crude blade in hand. "Cole!" I called out, pushing through the crowd. "Step away from that thing!" Cole turned, and I barely recognized him. His eyes were wide and feverish, a manic grin splitting his face. "Captain, you've come to join us. The gift, it's incredible. It's shown me everything." I kept my voice level, hand resting on my sidearm. "Dr. Cole, you're coming with us. Whatever this thing is, it's affecting your mind." "My mind has never been clearer, Captain. The gift is the key to our evolution. It needs us, don't you see? To spread, to grow." As he spoke, I noticed something horrifying. The cuts on Cole's arms were moving, the flesh knitting itself back together. But it wasn't healing. The skin was hardening, gaining a polished look. Moore saw it too. He raised his weapon. "Sir, we need to leave." The elder's voice rang out. "Seize them! The gift must not be denied." The colonists advanced with flawless coordination. I fired a warning shot into the air, the sound booming in the tight space. "Fall back!" I shouted to Moore, already retreating towards the exit. As we burst out of the temple, I saw Omar sprinting towards us. "Captain!" he yelled. "The ship! It's gone dark! We're stranded!" "Move!" I ordered, leading us away from the advancing horde. "We need to find a defensible position and figure out our next move." We sprinted through the winding streets, the sound of pursuit close behind. Ahead, I spotted a squat, windowless building with a reinforced door. "There!" I panted, gesturing towards the structure. "Looks like an old storage facility." Moore reached it first, slamming his shoulder against the door. It groaned, but held. "Locked, sir." "Move," Omar said, pushing past. He pulled out a small device and pressed it against the locking mechanism. Sparks flew and the door clicked open. We piled inside, Moore bracing the door shut behind us. The interior was dark and musty, filled with abandoned crates and equipment. "Omar, see if you can get that door sealed. Moore, help me barricade it. We need time to think." As we worked, pushing heavy crates against the entrance, I tried to process what we'd seen. Cole's transformation, the colonists' behavior, that bizarre object at the heart of it all. None of it made sense. With the door secured, I activated my wrist light, illuminating our surroundings. The facility was larger than I'd initially thought, stretching back into darkness. "Omar, any luck with communications?" "Nothing, sir. It's like something's actively jamming us." "Moore, ammo check." The sergeant's face was grim. 2 full clips each for the sidearms, 1 for my rifle. Not enough for a prolonged engagement. I considered our options. We need to find a way to contact the ship, or barring that, access the colony's long-range communication array. There has to be one somewhere. Sir, Moore interjected, with all due respect, we should be focusing on getting off here. Whatever's happened here, it's beyond our capabilities to handle. And what about Cole? Omar asked. I held up a hand, silencing them both. I know the situation looks bad, but we have a job to do. We find Cole, we get answers, and we call for backup. In that order. A sound from deeper in the facility caught my attention. We weren't alone. Weapons ready, I whispered, gesturing for Moore to take point. We moved through the maze of crates and equipment. As we neared the back of the facility, I noticed strange modifications to some of the machinery. Cybernetic components grafted onto old mining equipment, radiating the same blue-white light we'd seen in the temple. The scraping sound intensified. Behind a crate, a figure was crouched over an open panel, arms deep in a mess of wires and circuitry. But it wasn't human, not anymore. It turned, sensing our presence. Where a face should have been, there was only a smooth metal plate with a single glowing lens. "Contact!" Moore shouted, opening fire. The creature moved, darting between crates as bullets pinged off metal. I caught glimpses of it, scuttling along walls and ceiling. "Fall back!" I ordered, firing blindly into the shadows. "Back to the entrance!" As we retreated, more shapes emerged from the darkness. Former colonists, all in various states of cybernetic mutation. They pressed in from all sides, driving us away from the door. "Sir, we're cut off!" Omar yelled. I spotted a ladder leading up to a catwalk. "Up there! Move!" We scrambled up the ladder, the creatures hot on our heels. Moore took up a firing position, providing covering fire as Omar and I searched for an exit. "There!" Omar pointed to a hatch in the ceiling. "Maintenance access. It might lead to the roof." "Get it open. Moore, fall back to us when I give the signal." The hatch was rusted shut. I slammed my shoulder against it repeatedly, feeling the metal groan. Below, Moore's rifle clicked empty. "Any time now, sir," he shouted, switching to his sidearm. With a final heave, the hatch gave way. Cool air rushed in as I pushed it open. "Moore, now!" I yelled, helping Omar through the opening. The sergeant fired a final burst, then sprinted towards us. As he reached the ladder, one of the creatures sprang forward, its metallic talons scraping across his back. Moore cried out but kept climbing. I grabbed his arm, hauling him onto the roof as Omar slammed the hatch shut. We lay there for a moment, gasping for breath. The sounds of scratching and inhuman shrieks muffled beneath us. I forced myself to my feet, surveying our surroundings. The colony lay ahead, a cluster of decaying structures under an alien sky, and at its center, that damned temple, emitting a ghastly glow. "Sir," Moore grunted, examining the gashes on his back. "What's the plan?" "We find a way to contact our ship, then we put an end to whatever the hell is going on here, one way or another." I surveyed the colony from our rooftop vantage point. "Omar," I said, turning to our communications specialist. "Any ideas where we might find a long-range transmitter?" Omar scanned the horizon, his expression taut with concentration. "There." He pointed to a tall structure near the colony's edge. "That looks like it could be a communications tower. If it's still operational, we might be able to boost our signal." I nodded, then turned to Moore. "How's that wound?" The sergeant grunted, applying a self-sealing bandage from his medkit. "I'll live, sir. But those claws, they weren't just metal. Felt like they were trying to inject something. We'll need to monitor that closely. For now, can you move?" Moore stood, testing his range of motion. "Ready for action, Captain." "Good," I said, formulating a plan. "We'll make our way across the rooftops as far as we can. Less chance of running into those things down there." We moved silently, jumping gaps between buildings and scaling walls where necessary. The colony was quiet, save for the occasional scraping sound or a shriek from below. As we neared the communications tower, I held up a fist, signaling a halt. A group of colonists were gathered at the base of the tower. They performed what looked like maintenance on the tower's base. "Damn," Omar whispered. "How are we going to get past them?" I scanned our surroundings, noting a smaller building adjacent to the tower. "We'll enter through there. Might be a maintenance access point." We descended carefully, using scattered objects and shadows for cover. As we approached the smaller structure, a familiar voice stopped me cold. "I knew you'd come, Captain. The gift showed me." Cole stepped out from behind a rusted vehicle, his transformation even more advanced than when we'd last seen him. His skin had a glossy, reflective quality, and one arm had been fully replaced by a complex array of cables and cutting tools. "Cole," I said, raising my weapon. "Stand down. We can still help you." "Sir," Moore warned, his rifle trained on the mutated colonists, who were now turning their attention to us. Cole raised his mutated arm, the cables whipping forward. I dove to the side, feeling them whistle past my ear. The air filled with the sound of gunfire and shrieks. Cole moved with preternatural agility, dodging our shots and closing the distance rapidly. His cables lashed out again, catching Moore across the chest. The mutated colonists pressed in, forcing Omar and me back towards the building. "Sir, the door!" Omar called out, gesturing to the structure behind us. I laid down covering fire while Omar attended to the lock. Cole advanced, his demeanor altering into something fierce and unsettling. The door clicked open. "Got it!" Omar shouted. "Fall back!" I ordered, tossing a concussion grenade into the group of colonists. We ducked inside as it detonated, the blast shaking the building's foundation. Omar slammed the door shut, engaging the lock. I looked around frantically, searching for anything we could use to barricade the entrance. My eyes fell on a control panel on the far wall, lines of code scrolling across its screen. "Omar, see if you can access the tower's systems from that terminal. I'll try to slow them down." As Omar worked, I dragged heavy equipment in front of the door. The metal creaked loudly as something on the other side began to pound against it. "Captain," Omar called out, "I've got access, but... Sir, you need to see this." I joined him at the terminal, reading the display. It wasn't just a communication system. It was a planetary defense grid, and it was powering up. They're planning to launch something into orbit, to infect other worlds. The pounding at the door intensified. The door buckled, and a crack formed as metallic limbs began to force their way through. "Whatever you're doing, do it faster!" I squeezed off a burst of suppressing fire through the widening gap. Moore grunted, pressing a hand to his wounded side. "Sir, I don't think we can hold this position much longer." He was right. Our ammo was critically low, and the cybernetic monstrosities outside showed no signs of tiring. I was about to order a fallback when Omar let out a shout. "I'm in! Captain, you need to see this!" Schematics and technical readouts flowed across the screen. "What am I looking at, Omar?" "It's the artifact, sir, but it's not what we thought. It's a terraforming device, ancient, incredibly advanced." The door gave way with a screech of tearing metal. I spun around and emptied my clip into the first mutant that charged through. It fell, twitching, only for Moore to take its place. "Moore, frag out!" I shouted, diving for cover. The grenade detonated, momentarily stemming the tide of attackers. In the brief respite, I turned back to Omar. "Terraforming, that thing in the temple." "Yes, but it's malfunctioned somehow. These readings, it's not just changing the environment, it's changing everything. Us included." A cold dread settled in my gut as the pieces started to fall into place. The colonists' mutations, the alterations to the local flora and fauna we'd observed. It wasn't an invasion. It was a transformation. "Can you shut it down?" Omar shook his head. "I don't even understand half of what I'm seeing here. This technology, it's beyond us, Captain." A piercing shriek cut through the air, so loud it felt like my skull was vibrating. We all clutched our heads in pain. "What the hell was that?" More yelled over the ringing in our ears. I staggered to the shattered doorway, looking out towards the center of the colony. The temple, home to the artifact, was surging with energy. Waves of blue-white light rippled outward, and I swore I could feel the ground shaking beneath my feet. "Sir," Omar's voice was barely a whisper. "The artifact." I turned back to see him staring at the terminal. On the screen, a diagram of the artifact was changing, breaking apart into smaller components. It's disassembling itself, spreading out. These smaller units, they're burrowing into the ground, the structures, everywhere. A section of the floor near us suddenly bulged upward. Metal and concrete split apart as a small drone-like object emerged. It was a miniature version of the artifact. The drone ignored us, floating towards the wall and beginning to merge with it. More drones appeared, breaking through floors, walls, and ceilings. They moved, altering everything they touched. As we escaped the collapsing structure, I noticed Cole in the street, his cybernetic form reflecting the light. "Can you see it, Captain? The gift? It's not destruction, it's rebirth." I wanted to argue, to fight, to find some way to stop this madness. But as I watched the world around us begin to reshape itself, a terrible realization dawned. We weren't here to save this colony. We were here to witness its evolution. And whether we wanted to or not, we were about to become part of it. We ran through the transforming colony, avoiding tumbling wreckage and swarms of the miniature terraforming units. We need to get back to the temple. If there's any chance of stopping this, it'll be there. As we navigated the chaotic streets, I witnessed the full extent of the artifact's power. Buildings reshaped themselves, metal and concrete flowing like liquid. The ground beneath our feet softened and hardened in waves, forcing us to constantly adjust our footing. "Captain, look!" Omar pointed to a patch of soil near a collapsed structure. I watched in horrified fascination as the dirt seemed to come alive. Microscopic machines swarmed through it, altering its composition before our eyes. In a matter of seconds, the dull brown earth had transformed into a glittering, metallic substance. "It's changing everything," Omar said. "The atmosphere, the soil, the entire ecosystem." A group of colonists came into view ahead of us. Their mutations were even more pronounced now, bodies merging with the technology around them. But instead of attacking, they simply watched us with curious eyes. "Why aren't they hostile?" Moore asked, his weapon pointed at the group. I had a feeling I knew the answer. Because we're not a threat anymore. We're just part of the process now. I noticed thin metallic veins starting to spread across the back of my hand. Moore and Omar showed similar signs of transformation. I looked up to see dozens of the smaller terraforming units descending. They spread out across the colony, burrowing into buildings and the ground with single-minded purpose. "They're not just changing the surface," Omar realized, checking readings on his wrist computer. "They're going deep, altering the planet's crust, maybe even the core." We reached the base of the temple, its entrance now obscured by a network of curling tendrils. A tremor ran through the ground, stronger than before. I fell to my knees, my body racked with pain as the transformation accelerated. Moore reached for me, but stopped short as his own mutations became more pronounced. His arm extended, fingers branching out and transforming into sophisticated instruments. Omar stared at his hands in fascination as they merged with his computer, creating an interface. I struggled to my feet, fighting against the changes. "We have a duty," I ground out, "to warn others, to contain this." A powerful quake shook the colony. In the distance, I saw massive structures rising from the ground, launch platforms. This wasn't just about changing our world. The artifact was preparing to spread to other planets, other systems. The launch platforms rose higher, piercing the atmosphere. My body burned with transformation, every cell screaming as it was rewritten. I fought to maintain my sense of self, my mission. "We can't let this spread," I gasped, my voice distorted by the metal creeping across my vocal cords. "Omar, the communication array. Can you still access it?" Yes, Captain, but I'm not sure for how long. "The integration is accelerating." "Send a warning," I ordered. "To command," To anyone who'll listen, they need to quarantine this system. Sir, even if we warn them, we can't stop what's happening here. To us. I nodded, the motion sending sparks of pain through my reforming nervous system. I know, but we can give them a fighting chance. We staggered towards the colony's central hub, each step bringing new changes. My vision shifted, overlaying the world with streams of data. I could feel the pulse of the planet beneath me, the vibrations of the artifacts traveling through the crust. Omar interfaced directly with the communication array, his body merging with the technology. Broadcasting now, Captain. Wideband encrypted. But, sir, I'm not sure how much of the message is getting through. The artifact is interfering. I stepped up to the array, my body allowing me to connect to it in ways I never could have before. With the last vestiges of my human will, I recorded a final message. This is Captain Asher Roth of the rescue team sent to Colony Orion 4. The artifact we found here is not what we thought. It's changing everything. The planet, the colonists, us. It's a terraforming device gone wrong or maybe working exactly as intended. We can't stop it. We're becoming part of it. Quarantine this system. Don't send anyone else. We're already lost. As the last word left my lips, I felt something fundamental shift within me. I tried to resist, to hold on to my humanity, my mission. But the tide of transformation was inexorable. The last thing I saw with human eyes was the launch platforms igniting, carrying smaller versions of the artifact into space. Years passed, decades, centuries. The planet once known as Orion 4 transformed completely, its surface a network of organic machinery. The atmosphere, once thin and hostile, now teemed with nanomachines that sustained the new ecosystem. The beings that inhabited this world were neither human nor machine, but a perfect synthesis of both. At the center of it all stood the temple, now a massive structure that reached into the upper atmosphere. It radiated energy, guiding the continued evolution of the world and its inhabitants. In the depths of space on distant worlds, the first seeds of change began to take root. The gift spread, one planet at a time, reshaping the fabric of the galaxy. The transformation that began on a small, forgotten colony was now unstoppable. The future of intelligent life in the universe would never be the same.